Welcome to week 12, Explore the Bible, continuing in the book of Daniel. Today we're going to look at Daniel chapter 7. It's a tough passage, one that, let me just tell you, I'm not going to try to interpret all of the signs and symbols of it because I don't know what they are. I mean, there are guesses, we have ideas about it, but we don't know exactly. So we want to be sure that when we look at a passage like this prophetic passage about Daniel's future, maybe it's still things that are in our future, but maybe not. Parts of it, yes, no, we'll look at it. But it's important that we not get so bogged down in details that we miss the big picture of what is being shared in this, okay? And that we not get so caught up with trying to identify the different pieces in some historical context that we miss what God is trying to let us know and how we need to respond overall to the picture that he's painting for us, okay? So before we dive into Daniel chapter 7, be sure and subscribe to my channel, like, comment, share it with others, let them know how they can get on as well. Okay, so let's look Daniel chapter 7, starting verse 1 through 3. In the first year of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel had a dream with visions in his mind as he was lying in his bed. He wrote down the dream, and here is the summary of his account. Okay, this is the first year of King Belshazzar. Daniel has this dream, right? Okay. This chapter happens before what we had last week, chapter 6. Okay, this is chapter 7. I know it comes after as you're reading it, but the events chronologically are happening before because this is the first year of King Belshazzar. Okay, so he has a dream. He's lying in his bed. He has a dream. He wrote down the dream. And this is the summary of his account. So here's what Daniel said. I had this dream. Here's what I saw. In my vision at night, I was watching, and suddenly the four winds of heaven stirred up the great sea. Four huge beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. So he has this vision, and he sees the wind blowing from the four winds, which means every direction it's coming in, right? He sees the wind stirring up heaven. The sea is stirred up, right? And then here come these four huge beasts out, and then he gives us a description. The first was like a lion but had eagle's wings. I continued watching until its wings were torn off. It was lifted up from the ground, set on its feet like a man, and given a human mind. And suddenly another beast appeared, a second one that looked like a bear. It was raised up on one side with three ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, "Get up, gorge yourself on flesh." After this, while I was watching, suddenly another beast appeared. It was like a leopard with four wings of a bird on its back. It had four heads, and it was given dominion. Okay, it's pretty clear these are some strange creatures, right? I mean, these are some strange creatures. There's nothing like, he says it was like a lion, but it had eagle's wings, right? And then the wings were torn off. And then it sat on its feet like a man, and it had a human mind. And the second one appears, it looked like a bear, not a bear, but it kind of looked like a bear, but it was raised up on one side and had three ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And it said, "Get up, gorge your flesh." And then he says, I saw another beast, and it looked like a leopard, but had four wings of a bird on its back, and it had four heads, and it was given dominion. Okay, these are not animals that you're going to see anywhere, right? These are visions that he has. These are things that he sees, and there's no way to know what this means, right? What they are. There are guesses about what they are. Some might say that the first one was Babylon, this powerful empire. Maybe this is describing these powerful kingdoms that have been that were in existence, some before Daniel and then some after Daniel, right? And the second one might have been Persia. The Persian kingdom that comes and conquers Babylon, right? A great kingdom. And then maybe this third one is Alexander the Great, the Greek kingdom, right? The Greek empire. Maybe that's what it is, but we don't know. But there are some things that we can see here, right? And the power that they have, the strength that they have, you see that in their size and in the kinds of animals. You've got a lion and a bear and a leopard, right? And this great power, and yet under the sovereignty of God. Now, not under the direction of the Lord, not in service to the Lord in the sense that they're They are seeking to honor God, but they are ultimately under his sovereignty, right? That it was lifted up and set on its feet and given a human mind. Whether it didn't have this, it didn't create it on its own, it was given this, right? This one is told to get up and gorge yourself, right? So you see that they have this power, and yet it does appear that their power is given to them at the behest of someone else, right? It's the sense that ultimately God is still in control. And then he says, after this, while I was watching in the night vision, suddenly a fourth beast appeared, frightening and dreadful, incredibly strong, with large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed, and it trampled with its feet whatever was left. It was different from all the beasts before it, and it had 10 horns. While I was considering the horns, suddenly another horn, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. And suddenly in this horn there were eyes like the eyes of a human, and a mouth that was speaking arrogantly. Okay. That's crazy, right? I mean, can you imagine having this dream? Can you imagine what it was like for him? Okay, some people would say this one is the Roman Empire, right? The 10 horns, the 10 Caesars of the Roman Empire. So maybe that's what it is. Rome's a dominant country, right? And another one that follows after Greece. Rome conquered Greece, conquered all of these lands there. You know, when Jesus is around, Rome is ruling the world, the entire world. Their empire stretches as far as anyone has ever been, it seems. And there have been others since then. The British Empire was humongous, and then we look at the reign of the United States as the singular world power left now, although China and Russia, you know, are challenging that at times. But the United States is the single world power, so this is not an unusual thing for there to be a world power. What we do understand is that they have great power, they have great influence, they are exerting dominion, and this one, the mouth that's speaking arrogantly, they think highly of themselves. But then look, as I kept watching, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white like snow, and the hair of his head like whitest wool. His throne was flaming fire, its wheels were blazing fire, and a river of fire was flowing, coming out from his presence, and thousands upon thousands served him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was convened, and the books were open. Now we have this picture of these great powerful beasts, these huge kingdoms, right? And they exert great power over the world, and then boom, here comes the Ancient of Days. Here comes God himself. Right, the only place, I think it's the only place in Scripture where he's called the Ancient of Days, but it's this picture of God sitting on his throne, right, with this fire, flaming fire, and the river of fire that's flowing, right, coming out of his presence, and people are serving him. Thousands, he says, 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. There's a multitude of people are before him, and the court was convened, and the books were open. You see all the power that it appeared these beasts had, and all the great strength that they had ultimately, that we need to remember here, and what we need to see, I think is really important, is that God is sovereign over all of that. They do not act outside of his sovereignty, even though we may feel that God has lost control. As we see nations doing things, don't ever buy into that. God is in control. It doesn't mean he endorses what they're doing, but it does mean he is in control of what happens, always in control. And here he has set up his throne above all of those other thrones, right? And I watched then, because of the sound of the arrogant words the horn was speaking. As I continued watching, the beast was killed, and its body destroyed and given over to the burning fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was removed, but an extension of life was granted to them for a certain period of time. Okay, this fourth beast is completely killed, wiped out, speaking his arrogance, right? His arrogant sound and these words. But in the midst of that, he's killed, and his body is destroyed, and he's put into the burning fire. And then these other 3 are given a time, but they're granted a certain period of time, an extension. They're allowed to exist, but there is a limit to that, because God is in control, and he establishes the limits. He has put the nations in their borders and established the times that they will be in existence. And he will, if he decides, wipe them off the face of the earth. And then he says, I continued watching in the night visions, and suddenly one like a son of man was coming with the clouds of heaven, and he approached the Ancient of Days and was escorted before him. He was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, so that those of every people, nation, and language should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will not be destroyed. So here comes the Son of God, right? The Son of Man. He says, Jesus shows up. And he is given dominion over all of these things, right? And glory and a kingdom. And his dominion, it says, is everlasting. And his kingdom is one that will not be destroyed. Different from these others. When the King of Kings comes to reign, right? The Lord of Lords, the King of all the kings. He has the kingdom that rules over all of the other kingdoms. And his kingdom never is destroyed. His kingdom comes to no end. For he is God, right? The Son of Man, God in the flesh. Listen. As bad as we may think it gets, and as bad as it may get, the Lord is in control. And one day the Lord will exert his authority over all the earth, and every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Daniel gets a picture, right? He gets a vision of this. Not complete, but a vision that you know when you're in this country, where you've been a slave, basically, you've been a servant for 70 years, to know that God is in control has got to be an encouragement, right? Got to be an encouragement. Hey, I hope this has helped. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for teaching, spending time studying, trying to prepare to do a better job. God bless you as you do it. Subscribe to our channel, like, share it with others, comment on it. Let me know what you think about Daniel chapter 7, what you see in the different beasts that are there. All right, thanks. We'll see you next week.